Just in time for election madness, the Netflix series Love and Anarchy debuts November 4th. The show actually has zero to do with politics, but I thought the name was fitting. So should you be adding this to your watch list? A married woman gets an assignment to help modernize an old publishing house, where she meets a young IT tech and a flirtatious game begins. It starts innocently, but as the game gets more daring, the consequences grow proportionately. This Swedish series is billed as a comedy, drama, and romance. Now there are comedic moments and there is certainly some romance to it, but once this show finds its stride, it sits firmly in the drama realm. Sophia is the consultant, and because she has an addiction or maybe a compulsion to a certain behavior, she finds herself in an awkward situation, which then leads to the game of dares with the young IT guy, Max. Now the game is humorous and it has some levels of risk. Sometimes it leads to awkward situations or just calls on someone to be someone who they're not. It's a back and forth exchange that can be pretty fun. While some of the outcomes of the dares might be obvious, it doesn't take away from the story. And this isn't a mystery, so in fact, the mild predictability is kind of a comfort in some situations in this. Aside from Sophie and Max, there are a few characters within the publishing house who are quirky and odd. They're a bit eccentric, but they're not off-putting. Friedrich, Denise, and Ronnie are charming, arrogant, and passionate. They're not each of these all of the time, but those qualities do come forth quite often. Sophie has a husband, and he's sometimes very supportive and at other times a little bit mean. And I think that comes from their lack of connection and just their lack of time spent together because of her new job and his job. You can definitely tell that there is some friction between them. And even another source of that comes from Sophie's dad. He's erratic in his behaviors and he's passionate about politics and life, but he may not be totally stable. And it leads to some moments that are funny and awkward and sad and heartwarming, but just not all at the same time. There are 8 episodes in this and they're each around that 30-minute mark, so they're a pretty quick watch. I really want to like this, but I have an issue with the story itself. The main theme that interweaves throughout this is pretty sad to me. Now sure, there is comedy and there is romance, but it's the cost that's what's bothersome to me. And because of that, it makes it kind of hard for me to totally recommend. It's not the characters that are even the issue for me, it's the point of the story. I find it really hard to reconcile what I'm watching with what I believe is right. And I think if you start to watch this, then you probably will get hooked because the characters have a lot of charisma and have really good chemistry. They work really well as an ensemble and they create a very believable environment in this floundering publishing house. I like some of the situations the characters find themselves in also. I mean, there's the clash between old school and the modernization and all of the difficulties that come with that. We get to see some who are very excited about the future, even though they're completely clueless. And then there are those who are absolutely struggling to wrap their head around why they need to improve. Like I said, this is hard for me to emphatically endorse because of the story arc. But I do find the characters interesting, relatable, and sometimes charming. Maybe you'll get a kick out of it, or maybe you'll kind of find yourself on the fence like me. There is a lot of sex and nudity, a bunch of profanity, and not really any violence. I give Love and Anarchy 3 out of 5 couches. Have you ever played Truth or Dare? What's the craziest dare you ever accepted? If you can put it in the comments, let me know. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.